What will happen in episode 5 of the final season of Game of Thrones, the penultimate ever episode? What can we learn from the trailer and from how they left things in episode 4? Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to Deep Geek. If you want regular insight and intelligent debate about Game of Thrones and more, then click on the subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. The first half of this season was mostly based in Winterfell in the north. The second half, and this episode in particular, will be more about King's Landing. Half of the cast are already there, and most of the rest are on their way. Let's start with Team Daenerys. At the end of the last episode, she stormed away from King's Landing, understandably livid at Missandei's execution and Rhaegal's death, and although it might perhaps have made sense for Cersei to follow up on her ambush by killing off the rest of Dany's forces while they were there in an open field in front of her, Dany clearly makes it back to Dragonstone. She'll then wait for Jon and Davos to make it down south with the Alliance army, or what is left of it after the battle with the Army of the Dead. We're told that the two opposing forces, Dany's and Cersei's, are now roughly equal in strength. Daenerys obviously has a dragon, and Cersei has a castle, and much fresher forces who are dug in with scorpions, so there's not a clear favourite here. And although Dany will spend a lot of that time brooding and mourning and feeling lonely, she has just lost another of what she considers her children, and has seen her best friend and closest advisor killed in front of her, all the while probably still fearing for her relationship with Jon. All in all, she'll be in quite a dark place. Judging from these shots from the trailer, I mean that both figuratively and literally. She will be focused on one aim at this point: killing Cersei, getting revenge on her for what she has done. That would bring with it the Iron Throne, of course, the objective she has been focused on for so long. Tyrion here seems to be approaching her gingerly, which is understandable. It will be very tense in that castle during those 2 weeks. The bigger drama during this time, though, will be what happens with Varys and Tyrion. Varys has effectively told Tyrion that he is going to betray Daenerys in favour of Jon, so the question is, what will Varys do, and what will Tyrion do, knowing that about Varys? Well, if Tyrion is really loyal to Dany, he will have to tell her that one of her closest advisors is about to betray her, and if he does, I think we know what Dany will do. They foreshadowed this quite heavily last season. Varys promised her that he would tell her to her face if he ever thought that she was failing the people. He did that last episode, and Dany in turn promised that if he ever betrayed her, she would burn him alive. It seems likely that this is Varys' fate, probably in this episode. It's noticeable that we don't see him in the trailer for episode 5. He's probably either jumped ship or been executed. But eventually the Allied army does arrive from the north. This will be a rather ragtag collection of unsullied Dothraki, Northmen, and possibly some Knights of the Vale, and everyone lines up nicely outside King's Landing, ready for the battle. Curiously, the Golden Company appear to have been stationed outside the city walls as well. I would have kept them inside personally, but, well, who am I to second-guess Cersei's tactics? She's done okay so far this season. What they will all be waiting for is what Dany decides to do with Drogon. Thus far, whenever Dany has been attacked by scorpion bolts, it has been in surprise attacks, and it was just a matter of avoiding them as best she could. This time, she is in charge of how and when to attack, and she'll have a couple of weeks to consider how to do it. The scorpions seem to be stationed on the walls of King's Landing and on Euron's ships, and the only sensible thing for Dany to do is try to destroy them first, otherwise she's in big trouble. But how could she do it? Well, my best guess is that the clue is in this shot. Euron has clearly been stationed in Blackwater Bay with his fleet. Fair enough, that's where he's most effective. But here he is shielding his eyes from the sun and looking upwards. I wonder whether Dany is going to descend down on them directly so the sun is in their eyes and they can't make her out until it's too late. It's what Aegon the First Targaryen, Aegon the Conqueror, used to do, and she is very much in his mould. And if she does, I think we can expect Euron's fleet to be largely destroyed, or at least those parts of it with scorpions on them. I have a sneaky feeling that Euron won't die yet, though. He needs a final showdown with Yara, in my opinion, and that may well be an episode 6 thing. And then Dany can turn her attention to King's Landing itself. Again, her first target will have to be the Scorpions, and then the gates or any exposed troops, and then I'm sure it will start getting messy and complicated, and she will be faced with the big moral decision we have been building towards for 2 or 3 seasons now. Cersei has forced her into it by bringing the small folk into the Red Keep. Will she kill the small folk in order to get to Cersei? I think she won't, or at least I hope she won't. She is angry and single-minded, but she's never been cruel, so perhaps she'll land inside the Red Keep or try to clear the way for her army to get there or something like that. But I suspect that the people we should actually be looking for in terms of getting at Cersei are the people who headed down south separately from the rest of the army. Arya and the Hound, and Jaime. Taking Jaime first, although he will probably be the last to arrive. He left Winterfell a good few weeks after everyone else, and even if he travels fast, he'll surely get there a bit later. But he will be wanting to get to Cersei. Although his little speech to Brienne last episode might suggest that he is wanting to go and get back with her, I think it's more like him going there for a final confrontation. The two of them may have had a major falling out, but he's still the person most able to get close to her and to understand her. So I expect him to try to sneak in and talk to her. This hooded figure in the centre background of this shot looks like it might be him inside King's Landing. It's the same kind of hooded cloak that he wore travelling up to Winterfell earlier in the season. And when he does get to Cersei, I hope we finally get to the bottom of what's been going on with Cersei's pregnancy. She claimed to be pregnant with Jaime's child several months ago in Showtime, and then she claimed last episode to be pregnant with Euron's child. Something here doesn't add up, and I hope we find out what this is in this episode. The others trying to get into the Red Keep are Arya and the Hound. Arya, way back in Season 1, actually found her way out of the Red Keep via some of the secret tunnels, so I think there's a fair chance she might go back in that way. And although they won't think of themselves as working as a team, her and Sandor will probably work alone together, so to speak. Sandor wants to confront Gregor Clegane, the Mountain. He is, of course, a wight of some kind, having been brought back by Qyburn, and it's possible that the only way to really kill him will be with fire. So the last beat of Sandor's long character arc leading him back to his brother will be to finally conquer his fear of fire, which started when Gregor held his face in a fire, and use it to destroy him. Arya will be wanting to finish off her list, and the only 2 names on it are the Mountain, who Sandor will be focusing on, and Cersei. This would be a great moment for her to use her faceless men tricks and disguise herself as someone else in order to get close to Cersei. So we have Daenerys and Arya and Jaime and the Hound and probably Jon, as well as Cersei and the Mountain and Qyburn, all fighting or trying to evade being killed in a small space. I suspect that, as with Episode 3, all of this will come to a head at the same time, probably in the throne room itself, in front of the Iron Throne. I wonder whether the showrunners will play in with the symmetry that they teased last episode, that Cersei lived for her 3 children, and so did Dany, her dragons. There's a pretty good chance that Drogon may die here, and perhaps we'll discover that Cersei has been faking her pregnancy or has had a miscarriage, leaving the 2 of them in the same position, nothing to fight for except the Iron Throne, and both feeling betrayed in some way by the man they love, Cersei with Jaime and Dany with Jon. Both at the end will have lost almost all of the support they once had. The showrunners have set this up for one or both of them to decide that if they can't have the Iron Throne, no one should have it. Both have been set up as echoes in some way of the Mad King, who decided to destroy King's Landing rather than lose the throne. There's a very strong chance that one or both won't survive the episode. And if Cersei does try to burn them all with wildfire, it would give Jaime the opportunity to end his own character arc in perhaps the most tragic but appropriate way. He became known as Kingslayer and Oathbreaker when he killed Aerys II, saving hundreds of thousands of lives, but never getting the credit for it. This time, perhaps he could do it again and die, but get the credit. It's a theory, but it would work well. What we can be sure of is that there is going to be a lot of fire in this episode, a lot of destruction, and a lot more characters will die. This will feel like tragedy with huge doses of treason, the bitter part of bittersweet. Please join me for live streams on Thursdays and Sundays all through the season, where I'll be discussing what's going on in the show, with special guests, and making predictions about future episodes. Or if you'd like to see more of my Game of Thrones Season 8 videos, please click on this link on the left of the screen. Or if you'd like to support the channel, or get some exclusive content or priority access on my live streams, please click on the link to my Patreon page on the right of the screen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.